Hello, it is April 21st, 2020, and today I'll be reading from Hebrews chapter 13 and verse number 17. The Bible reads, "Obey them that have the rule over you, and submit yourselves, for they watch for your souls, as they that must give account, that they may do it with joy, and not with grief, for that is unprofitable for you." And here the writer of Hebrews lays out a very interesting principle about authority or leadership. The Greek word that is translated, "them that have the rule over you," is translated in the Bible to mean those that lead or those that have authority. The original word simply means those that go before or those that are ahead, and we see it translated in places that talk about those who have positions of authority, as well as those that may not have positions of authority but do have areas in which they lead. Now, leadership and authority are not the same things, but we do see authority being mentioned many times in the Bible, as well as leadership as important parts in our lives. We see authority in areas where there are more than one person in a structure, such as a family structure, a work environment, a marriage, the church, society, any area in which we find more than one person and decisions have to be made. Authority is placed into those structures in order for that purpose. But there's a reason why that authority exists that is so very important, that is spelled out here in this verse. And that reason is seen here. "Obey them that have the rule over you, and submit yourselves." But why? It says why. "For they watch for your souls, as they that must give account." And that is the principle that is being spelled out here. Authority exists for the reason that responsibility exists. Authority and responsibility are intrinsically linked together. When responsibility is in play, authority must be in play also. For example, in our society, we have certain people who have responsibility in our society. With that responsibility, we must then give them authority so that they can fulfill that responsibility. But that responsibility exists because that person has to answer for what it is they do. Take, for example, the President of the United States. The President of the United States does not have complete authority in our nation, but he does have some authority. That authority is linked directly to his responsibility, which is executing the laws of the land. That is his responsibility. And since that is his responsibility, he is then given the authority to do that. But that responsibility comes with it accountability. Accountability to the people of the United States. And so that responsibility, that accountability, and that authority go hand in hand. The same is true in any institution. When you look at a place of employment, the reason why we have a supervisor in a place of employment is because there's a responsibility to get something done. That supervisor has responsibility, and therefore he must also have authority. But that responsibility and authority then makes him accountable to someone that is over him. At the end of the day, he has to answer to somebody else, and because he has to answer to somebody else, the responsibility, he then must have the authority to do what it is that he needs to do. So in every institution or in every structure, those that are in the positions of leadership and authority are those that also have the responsibility and accountability. If someone has a position of authority but has no accountability to anybody, that creates a structure of tyranny. Someone that is in a position of power but doesn't have to answer to anybody, can presumably do whatever it is they choose to do because there's no one to hold them accountable. And the opposite is true too. Those that are put into a position where they have accountability to somebody else, but they have no authority, become subservient because they have to answer to somebody, yet they have no authority by which to do what it is that needs to get done. So this idea of accountability, responsibility, and authority must go hand in hand. Now, at the end of the day, where does it come from? Authority is often looked down on in our society, and it's often denigrated, and in many cases seems like we have come to the point where we think there is no real need for authority anymore, but authority at the end of the day does come from God. Romans tells us that. Romans chapter 13 tells us, "Let every soul be subject unto the higher powers. For there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power resisteth the ordinance of God. And they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation." And it reminds us that at the end of the day, those who are in positions of authority and have a responsibility are likewise accountable to God. They are accountable for what it is they do, and they must answer to God for what it is they do. That is why the Bible tells us, "Be not many masters, for ye shall receive the greater condemnation." Or in other words, there shouldn't be quite the desire to always be the one in charge, because you are held to a higher standard. You have to answer to an authority that is higher than you. 2 Samuel 23:3, David speaks to this idea and reminds us that they that rule over men must be just, ruling in the fear of the Lord. There's a reminder to anyone who holds a position of authority that that is a great responsibility, but with that comes great accountability. There is going to be an answer for what it is that you do. So at the end of the day, if you want to know who is in authority or who should be in authority or who should be leading, it is the person that has the responsibility, the person that must answer for what it is that takes place and has to answer to a higher authority. Every one of us has a higher authority in our life. Every one of us will answer to somebody. This applies on the individual level as well. The Bible tells us that we shall all give an account to the Lord for the things that we have done. That means that in a very real sense, every one of us has authority over ourselves individually, and we have a responsibility to do that which is right, because we are accountable to our Lord. God bless you, and we will see you again very soon.